Welcome to the interview series that we're doing in the context of our conference, Unsettled Europe, Refugees, States and Politics in Southeast Europe. And we're welcoming Danilo Mandic, who's a fellow at Harvard University, who just spoke at our panel here on the second day, who spoke about or basically presented the results of a large-scale study that he'd done at Harvard University on the migrational experiences of Syrian refugees in particular on their way from Syria to Western Europe through the so-called Western Balkans transit route. So I was wondering whether you could tell us a little bit about this large-scale project, in the first question, then later on we'll talk a little bit more about the results and the implications of the research.
Yes, absolutely. This is a international study of Syrian migration, and it's mostly a study of the migratory process itself. So not so much on the side of assimilation, and not so much on the causes in the host country, the so-called push factors, what is sometimes called. This is a study of risk-taking and decision-making of Syrian refugees from 5 countries. So we sampled hundreds of people in Jordan, Turkey, Greece, Serbia, and Germany. And this is a project, I should mention, done with the help of the Boston Consortium for Arab Regional Studies. So what we did was we had a team of wonderful researchers. Many of them spoke Arabic, most of them were trained to speak Arabic. We trained them to conduct in-depth interviews, surveys, and ethnography. So this took us, it was a team effort and a painful coordination effort that took us to these 5 countries in which we, in addition to surveying people and interviewing them, went to all the major refugee hotspots, ranging from full-scale camps like Zatari or Preševo in Serbia to improvised settlements in Greece or on border crossings where there isn't any state apparatus present, but it's clearly swelling to a kind of a camp.
Okay, and I mean, something that I found particularly interesting in your presentations was the perception of human trafficking and smugglers per se, and the discrepancies between how smugglers are perceived in public and official discourse in the European Union, and how they are perceived within the experiences of Syrian refugees. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Yes, absolutely. It's an exciting part of the I really think it's a contribution to the general refugee literature, which is sometimes divided between too much of an emphasis on micro level and too much of an emphasis on macro level. So a lot of people in this kind of, say, push-pull theory, it used to be called, you focus you want to explain everything about refugees, you look just at the refugee and his rational decision-making and strategizing and him being drawn to wage differentials or something, but everything is thought to be at that micro level. And then the other extreme is people who very rarely even conduct bottom-up research, very rarely even talk to a single refugee. It's kind of purely quantitative methodology is very susceptible to this, where it's a story of grand forces or globalization or the north-south divide, or so it's all macro. Mm-hmm. But then there is this important meso level, which is the arena of these middlemen, smugglers among them, but not just smugglers. Smugglers are a prominent case in the Balkan route because it's a well-established criminal route well before this particular Middle Eastern refugee wave, but also middlemen such as connections. So you have people pooling money, you have financial providers, you have people providing shelter on an ethnic but kind of kinship ethnic ties that take them to one place as opposed to another. You have camp officials and CAF staff and so on, who often make decisions against official government policy, but also against refugee preferences that determine outcomes in very important ways. So smugglers are a major example of the importance of studying at that meso level, the middlemen who shape both what the national governments are doing and what the effects of what they're doing is, and certainly shape the risks and decisions and the scope of options that refugees themselves have at that micro level.
Okay, and you said you were teaching a course next term at Harvard on the refugee in the global context of the global crisis of the 21st century. I was just wondering, what will you tell your students? What are the main outcomes of this study in terms of particularly policies for the European Union? Where are the biggest misconceptions and actually problems of how the European Union has been approaching not just the refugee crisis itself, but also this phenomenon of the middlemen and human trafficking?
Fortunately, there is a lot of interest in the refugee issue, which is encouraging. I'm so grateful to be at your conference, and I'm seeing like how you're really doing God's work, because you're bringing together people who work on refugees who need not have met each other, but are working on the exact same problem, but just don't have any arena to interact. So I think a lot of the work is just kind of bringing people who have common interests together to work on a lot of these issues. I think one of the main misconceptions that I'm hoping to explore with them relates to smugglers, in the sense that common sense only gets you so far. And by that I mean the common sense view that smugglers are the root of the problem, and that smugglers are, as they are, criminal, that's beyond, but that their effect is unambiguously bad, and that what we need to do is eliminate them in order to, that they're kind of a priority to eliminate smugglers and crack down smugglers to fix the migration crisis. The problem with that is that it doesn't pay attention to the complex role that they play as advisors, as strategists, as allies, as people who they're not just service providers. They are crucial decision makers and decision crafters for the refugees. Just to give you one example, refugees in Serbia we spoke to have the option of proceeding to Germany in two illegal ways. Both are illegal. One is to cross the Hungarian border at Horgoš or Kelebija. Another is to cross westward into Croatia, also illegal through Šid. The latter option is much safer than the former. The Hungarian border is the most militarized one in Europe, the Serbia-Hungary border, and attempting to cross there invariably results in beating, sometimes hospitalization, that you get attacked by attack dogs. The Hungarian police, which clearly has a kind of tolerance policy from on top to treat refugees like garbage, get assaulted pretty badly, get stolen from them, all their possessions get taken off, and then they get kicked back into Serbia and told, remember the name of this country so that you never return here. The option of going into Šid, we found, is not something that they decline to do. It's something that they don't even consider, because the smugglers are pushing them northward for their own reasons, because they have an established network there and so on. So that's an example of how you really, without understanding what these middlemen are doing, in shaping their perceptions, in shaping their understanding of what risks are available, what decisions are available, what the choices are determining outcomes in very important ways. So I think that a lot of that is counterintuitive, and I think teaching or learning from each other about refugees requires kind of overcoming those commonsensical views.
Well, thanks for being an advocate for introducing further complexity into an already complex matter as it is. Thanks for agreeing to speak to us. Thanks for your presentation, and I hope you'll enjoy the following 2 days of the conference, and hope to see you soon in Grant again.
Thanks for organizing.
Thanks.